understand until recently. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. And for a long time, I loved that quote. Because the older I get, the more I realize that changing yourself is much harder than changing the world. And one of the first things I had to change about myself was how quickly I decide who someone is. Because it's just easier to judge someone from far away than understand them up close. And I learned that lesson in a rather unexpected way. Not from a friend, not from a stranger, not even from a person, but from a penguin. This didn't come from anything dramatic. No big moments, no life changing events, just something I saw online. A simple image of a penguin walking away. No context, no explanation, and I remember what I did with it. I didn't pause. I didn't wonder. I didn't even look twice. I reacted instantly. My mind filled in the meaning before I even realized I was thinking. Psychologists call this closure bias. The brain doesn't like incomplete information, so it fills in the gaps. And once it feels complete, we stop questioning it. And later, that's what bothered me. Not the penguin, my certainty. How fast I decided what it was. How quickly I created a story around something I barely saw. And that's when it hit me. And I know some of you are probably thinking, yes, Amaya, we've all heard this before. It's just another talk about misjudging people. But I'm not here to talk about misjudging people. I'm here to talk about how little it takes for us to believe that we've understood them. And here's the part that stayed with me. Because the moment we decide to notice who someone is, and when I understood that idea, I couldn't just leave it as an idea. Because it's one thing to talk about assumptions in theory. It's another to notice the places where they've shaped your own life. And if I'm being honest, the moment this idea started being abstract was when I saw how easily I had done it to someone I cared about. I have a confession to make, and I wish it was something cool like I once stole a bike or I secretly live a double life, but no. My confession is much less exciting and somehow way more embarrassing. I misjudged someone I cared about. Yes, that's right. There was someone in my life who changed in a way that I didn't understand. Shorter messages, conversations that used to feel effortless suddenly felt heavy. And I remember staring at my phone, rereading messages that once arrived in long paragraphs now arrived in a few short words. Every conversation felt smaller than the one before. So technically, I assumed they didn't care. I assumed I wasn't as important as I thought I was. And the worst part was, I didn't check in. I didn't get curious. I didn't even give them space to be human. I just let my assumptions harden into certainty. Until I learned I was wrong, they weren't pulling away from me. They were carrying things I couldn't see. You know, those things that don't show up in tone, messages, or distance. And what hurt me wasn't that I was wrong. It was how little information I needed to build a whole story that felt completely real to me. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't just my story. It's all of ours. So I started asking people in my life a simple question. Was there ever a moment where someone judged you and they were wrong? And the answers, they came quickly. Not dramatic stories, just quiet ones. Moments where someone was shy and was read as arrogance. Moments where someone was hurting and people assumed they didn't care. Different people, different situations, but the same pattern every single time. A small moment, a small misunderstanding, and suddenly a whole story gets written about someone. And that's when it hit me. We're all walking around being misread in ways we'll never even know about. And at the same time, we're doing it to others. And here's the part that made me realize just how universal this actually is. Because while I'm standing here talking about assumptions, some of you may have already formed a few about me. Too serious? Too dramatic? Too young? Too nervous? And it's okay. Because that's exactly what this talk is about. How fast our minds decide. How quickly we fill in the blanks and how confidently we build a story around something we barely saw. And maybe that's why Leonardo da Vinci once said, The greatest deception humanity suffers is from their own opinions. And I used to think that's such a dramatic line. But now I think it's actually very simple. We don't see reality first. We see our opinion of it first. And let me just show you how quickly we do that. Just for a second, let me slow it down. We see someone who's shy, cold. We see someone who doesn't talk much, rude. We see someone who doesn't react the way we expect, selfish. And all of this came from just one moment, and sometimes we never even stop to question if that moment was true. Through another lens, I realized how little it takes for us to believe that we've understood them. And maybe this is exactly what happened with the penguin. We saw a single moment, an animal turning its back and walking off into the distance, and we filled in the silence with meaning, emotion, theories, and labels. But all we ever truly had was a fragment of a story continuing beyond the frame. Robert Frost once said, "Half the world is composed of people who have something to say and can't, and the other half who have nothing to say and keep saying it." Because I think most of the time, we fall into that second half. We fill the silence too quickly. We explain too fast. We conclude before we understand, not because we're careless, but because we often mistake fragments for certainty. A glance, a tone, a moment. So when you walk out of this room today, remember this. Remember it. It takes almost nothing to build a false story, and just a little more to choose a truer one. A moment of curiosity before you conclude. A moment of courage before you label. And a moment of silence before you assume. That's all. That's the whole difference. That's how little it takes. Thank you.